I had the privilege of being on the water polo team with Adam at the varsity level for 3 years. And we won too many games, and we're close in too many games that we shouldn't have been a part of because of him.
I can tell you how many games that he just saved us that we didn't have even a shot of being a part of. He was dominant in the goal at the time that he played.
He was an outstanding goalie. He was known to be one of the premier athletes in the league, and he kept us in games we had no business being a part of, and helped us win a lot of games just because of his outstanding athletic ability.
Pretty much every goalie that I can think of that I remember as a real, true high-level goalie has had some, crazed part of his personality. He's really either egotistical or cocky or bossy or, had something about him where he's just kind of weird. Adam was none of that. I think Adam's one of our top goalies of all time, and he's one of the most level-headed guys you will ever meet. He was like a calming sense on the team, and a leader just by his calmness and his cool character in the cage. And I think he's that kind of way as a person now. He was that kind of way on campus. He was always very businesslike. He kind of was that third coach that we had in the water. He would take care of discipline problems. He wouldn't put up with any screwing around from high school kids at that time, and even now can just be goofballs in the water. And Adam was a calming sense for the whole team. He had super high character, and he was about getting the job done every single day.
He excelled at water polo, and he's continued kind of instilling the Dls Hall tradition of brotherhood and the mentality that we've had here and we were brought up with, teaching youth in his area.
Adam's done nothing but show well for the school and this community throughout his whole life, and he leaves that for us.
On the basketball court, in the pool, he led by example. He was a hard worker. He kept his grades up in school. He had no enemies. He was well respected not only throughout school but throughout his community at home.
Playing Antioch my junior year in 1996, I believe, and Jason was our starting pitcher, and he was our number 3 hitter as well. And we were playing a really good Antioch team, and they had these 2 incredible lefties, and we couldn't get a hit off of them. And we were really relying on Jason to get us the win, and he just battled and battled and battled. I think he threw a 2-hitter shutout, and we were able to beat an Antioch team that was loaded at the time, and they were one of the best teams in the area, one of the better teams in the state. And I remember sitting on the bench, sitting in the outfield and then watching this guy hit, and I was watching him play. I'm like, this guy is on an entirely different level, and he really just put us onto his back and carried us through one of the most difficult games of the entire year.
It was 1997. It was a championship game in the Coliseum, and he pitched the day before to get us in that championship game. And so he was sort of spent, but we had a few innings left in him, so he came in relief in the 5th inning, and he was hurting, he was sore, it was a long season. Nevertheless, he wanted the ball, he took the ball, he struck out 7 of the 9 hitters, and we won the championship. And that just shows you what type of a kid and competitor Jason is.
Realistically, I think Jason Dennis is one of the best baseball players I've ever played with, and he was a part of back-to-back state championships. He was his junior year and his senior year, we won state championships. And I don't know if that's been done necessarily here before. It's going to be really hard to do it again, no matter what. And he really was. He was like a consummate professional as a baseball player, and he was in high school. I remember learning so much from him, and I tried to pass that on to some of the younger guys that I played with that were coming up, because he took me under his wing when I was younger. I was a year behind him, and he was just incredible, teaching me how to play the game, little nuances of what to do, and I carried that with me for my entire playing career.
He was so good. Coach Jensen and I would always say, is he a better first baseman? Is he a better pitcher? Is he a better hitter? He was good in everything. And as his years went on here at Dls Hall, his senior year, we realized he was going to pitch at the next level. So I think that was his legacy, his commitment, his dedication. But he was just so good as a high school baseball player.
I only know the history starting in the mid-'90s, but from when I played until now, you can make the argument that he's the best baseball player that's walked through these halls. He was the player of the year. He was one of the best pitchers in the state, and he was also one of the best hitters in the state. That's a pretty tough feat to match.
When they got to this championship game for North Coast Sectional, they were playing a team that had what most folks had considered one of the best players in the North Coast section. Dwayne found out that this fellow, Adu, he was the best player in the league, and the coach said, your job in this coming game is to mark Adu. Well, all that week leading up to this championship game, Dwayne developed a mantra, which I can't really repeat here. That mantra, he just kept going all the way up through the game. And when he got in the game, needless to say, Adu was unable to do anything but dribble the ball once. If he tried to get a second time, he lost the ball and had no opportunity to forward pass the ball. Well, Dwayne is characterized as a scholar athlete with the emphasis on scholar. Dwayne, he uses his intellect because when he played soccer, he was never, ever the best soccer player on the field, no matter what team he was on at what level. He was never the best. But the one thing that he had over everyone else, bar none, was he worked hard, he prepared hard, he trained hard. As a matter of fact, they had practice, they would say, we're going to go half speed. Dwayne had no idea what half speed meant because he's full bore all the time. And so his scholastic ability is certainly the thing that helped him because he understood just not only the game, but he certainly understood and anticipated just about every opportunity that confronted him on the soccer field. The one last thing that I think that Dwayne had left with the Dls Hall community is that I believe it was his sophomore year, he got Dls Hall and Habitat for Humanity to work together and get the Dls Hall community to participate in building homes for the needy. And I believe that is still continuing today. Dwayne is certainly bought into the Dls Hall commitment to service, and that certainly drove him while he was in high school, and not only high school, through today in his professional life. And he certainly dedicated himself to service. He's a doctor trying to serve people that have various needs in their life, and that certainly has been something that has, to me, is a lasting legacy.
Dave Laverne is a man, and we watched that happen here. He came in goofy. He found the weight room. He found the football field. He found the brotherhood, and he embraced it. And he thrived in it. And watching him come in here with someone who didn't know much about football, I feel, and just coming to that game and how natural it was and the violence was for him. And it wasn't always. I remember a time, I believe it was our junior year, he quit for a day. He was done with it. He didn't want to do it anymore. And a couple people got to him and said, this is your thing. You need to refocus.
He came to me and said he didn't want to play anymore. He wanted to work on his car or something like that. And I go, wait, what? I think you have a future in this game. And he did. And he went on to play Division I college football at San Jose State. Went on, had a great career there and was drafted by, I think, the New York Giants when Bill Parcells was coaching. Maybe it was the New England Patriots, one of the two teams. But he played in the NFL for 3 or 4 years. He played for the Detroit Lions also. And when you make it to that level, there's got to be something very special about you.
During those times, it's a crazy life being in the NFL. You're here 1 year, you don't know if you're going to be there the next year. You may be there 2, you don't know where you're going to be in 3 or 4. But as soon as Dave was done, he immediately started training, conditioning, things like that for youth sports. Doesn't have his own children that I know of. But he took those lessons, he took that work ethic, he took that scholarship, that integrity that he learned at De La Salle, and he's now applying that with kids.
He was just a joy to coach. He was a real paradox in a lot of ways. On the football field, he was just fantastic. Physical, athletic, could do anything you'd ask a lineman to do. Tough, aggressive, and then you get him off the field and he was like a big teddy bear. He was friendly, nice, polite, help anybody out, good teammate, good team leader. You know, it was kind of like he broke the mold of the stereotypical football player. I would like to have all our linemen be like him. Unselfish, dedicated, would do anything you ask him to do, hardworking, good student, respected by teachers, coaches, peers. He was the total package. They come around once in a decade, it seems, that a young man like him could do so many things. Not just in sports, he was a soccer player, a baseball player, football player, but on our football team, on when we coached him, he was a receiver, he was a defensive back, a safety, a corner, he was a kick return guy, he was a punt return man, he could kick off, he could kick field goals. I mean, he was like the Swiss Army knife. Anything you ask him to do, he could do.
The first time I met him on the ghetto during Hell Week for freshmen in 1987, they had us run a 400, and Kevin Walker and Roque Bellina took off and finished before I was probably halfway around, and I realized, saying to myself, if this is the caliber of a De La Salle athlete, I am in trouble. He was a guy that, over his 4 years, just his focus, his commitment, talent, and most importantly, probably his hard working was just evident in everything he did. You know, he was a 4-year in-season athlete, which I think is very hard to do, and not only be in season the entire time, but to be successful the entire time.
He was one of those guys you could always say, let his play do his talking for him. I mean, really, you couldn't get a peep out of the kid sometimes, but what a great attribute that, when he got on that field, he just transformed.
Did his job, understood his way around the football field, very knowledgeable about the game, very instinctual.
And he chose to play, football and basketball and soccer and baseball, but I would imagine he could have played any sport at this school, although I've never seen him swim.
I never saw him slack ever in practice, or in games. He was always out there giving 100%, and it's really, that was the foundation of our football program, and that's the kind of legacy those players from the 80s and the early 90s, we kind of built on their legacy and created kind of the sports program that we have today, and especially our football program.
He's one of those players where, at the end of a coach's career, which I am very close to, they'll stand out at the top, and they're ones you'll always remember.
To choose just one moment that's an outstanding moment in my memory of this team. Obviously, the state championship is going to be the biggest moment probably when I think about that team, but there were a lot of big moments. They won the Stanford Invitational. They were 4 points, I think, from winning the Mount Sac Invitational as well, so those are all really big moments. You had guys on the team who were comedians. You had guys on the team who were grinders. You had guys on the team who were serious. You had guys on the team who were jokers. It was a real fun cross-section of guys, and I think that it was a real special mix of personalities when I think back on that team. I think back on that team and I remember lots of laughter. They were a fun group of guys to be around and to coach. I remember them being one of the more light-hearted groups when it came to race time. When we'd go to races, you often have groups that are very serious, really focused. And these guys were serious and focused, but they never seemed overly anxious. They always had a lightness about them. Their lasting contribution would be the fact that they confirmed what the 1991 state championship had put in place. In 1991, the state championship kind of put our team on the map, and the 1996 state championship and their ability to run the fastest time in the state really confirmed us as one of the elite Northern California cross-country teams. So I think that their legacy is really their ability to succeed. They were able to succeed in all sorts of races despite the fact that they had adversity thrown their way in a variety of different ways. And there was always someone who stepped up and filled the gap and filled the void and made it so the team could be successful. Whether it's at Stanford Invitational, Mount Sac, or State, someone was always there to step up. And that ability to succeed is really, I think, their legacy.
One of the outstanding moments of the 2003 football team was when we were playing the #1 team in the country, Evangel Christian, over at DVC. We were all set to go, ready to rock and roll with this team who was kind of outweighed us. They had some great athletes on their team. We had great athletes on our team too, so it was supposed to be a really tight game. And we got into this early second quarter, I think, and Kevin Lapina broke out of the pocket, was running an option run, and broke it down the sideline for a long run, and someone came in low and hit him and damaged his knee, and he was out for the season. And then Anthony Gutierrez, our starting strong safety, stepped in and played in his spot. And we really didn't miss a beat. Kevin was a great quarterback, but Anthony was too. And we didn't know it at the time, but he was just cool as a cucumber and got in there and ran our offense, and we just didn't miss a beat. It was really a unique situation, and where adjustments had to be made, right on the spot. And all the kids stepped up. It was an exciting game, and we eventually won it 28-7.
Back then, I'll never forget, we put that game on at DVC, and Evangel Christian was one of the best teams in the country coming out of Louisiana, and ESPN paid for them to come to California and play against us. And that was, like I said, the first the first game, high school football game, put on ESPN. So that's always kind of a special moment as a coach and athletic director.
We were playing, I think, St. Francis at the time, and we were kind of running out of running backs. And Terrence Kelly came up, and he was like, "Hey, put me at running back." I played running back my freshman and my sophomore year. And our offensive line, their eyes lit up because Terrence was an inside linebacker and a tight end, so he was one of them. And they're all, "Yeah, put him back there. We'll block for him." And on the first play, we watched Terrence. He took the ball, and he just carved right through their defense. And you could see the excitement level of our team, and you could see the excitement level of our offensive line. And all the coaches looked at each other and were like, "I think this is something that's going to stick, and I think this team's going to be pretty special."
I think every team, no matter who it is, has a culture. No matter what school or pros, college, high school, every team has a certain culture behind it. And usually that culture is not written down or it's hanging on the wall. It's just what you create in terms of relationship, in terms of dedication, in terms of caring for each other, in terms of understanding your own personal contribution to the team. And I believe that team had that nailed down very well. Our offensive line was phenomenal. And they were just well drilled. They weren't big guys. They were in the 220 range, 215, and just extremely well drilled in technique, motivated. They were smart. You didn't have to pound stuff into their heads. They were very self-motivating. I always had a thought or an idea, and I usually tell it every team that I coached, that the harder I have to work, the worse we're going to be. And I have to say, on that team, I didn't have to work that hard. And that is in terms of motivating them, getting them to do things in practice, drilling them over and over and over again. These guys were smart, they picked it up, they were good athletes, and they were motivated, they were good teammates. They coached each other, which is part of our culture. And that season was a great ride for coaches.